Welcome back to the Distressed Princess. In today's video, I'm working on some Halloween jack-o'-lanterns. In the first DIY today, I will use this carvable pumpkin that I got from Walmart. It was $12. It was more than I had hoped to spend, so hopefully you can find a better deal on a carvable pumpkin than I did, but that's the most expensive thing. After you've cut your tag off, then you decide which side is the face of your jack-o'-lantern. Then I drew my face on. You can go ahead and start carving if you're confident, but I took a pencil and I sketched out my face. And if you make any mistakes, don't worry, you can just erase and do again, which I had sketched out this whole mouth and I liked the design, and then I realized I had drew it too high up. It needed to be low. So I had to erase the entire thing and draw it again. But I really like the design of this mouth if you want to use this design or do one that you like. Then just get to carving, and you'll notice I did not carve the top or the bottom. So you don't want your pieces falling in the middle, and I do have a remedy for that. I am just, of course, using a regular steak knife, you can see. But the remedy is this little poking device from the Dollar Tree. So I stick that in the middle of the piece, so when I carve around, I have something to hold and not let it fall down into the pumpkin. After you're happy with your carving, this is optional. You can erase all your lines that didn't need to be carved, but I think that the paint will cover it, but I erased mine. Then I did a little cleanup carving, just like I would on a regular pumpkin with a paring knife. And I just kind of make that as smooth around the edges as possible. Now then, we're ready for painting. I'm using the Snow White color of Waverly chalk paint. At first I thought I was going to get all of my detail design, which is rustic chippy white paint on this jack-o'-lantern. And I thought I might try first just to get it with painting alone, but I really wasn't liking the effects that I was getting just by using paint. So then I scrapped that whole idea and realized I could wet distress this chalk paint. So then I did a pretty thick one coat of chalk paint all over the pumpkin. And then I used my wet distressing method, and I noticed that the spots that had kind of gooped up on me, like sometimes paint will do, they were wet distressing really easy. But anywhere else on the pumpkin was not. Like, here's a spot I thought needed to be a little distressed, so I took my really wet rag, and I rubbed and rubbed and rubbed, and the paint wasn't coming off that easily. It wasn't giving me the effect I wanted. So I thought, okay, I'll just gob some paint in places, just hoping that it would work. I don't know why it would or why it does. Someone will have to explain the chemistry or how paint works to me. I don't know. But when I applied extra paint, dried it up, then went back and tried to rub it off, it came right off. So I just dabbed some paint where I wanted it and wet distressed that way. I like the authentic chipping back of the paint look, but you could also use just orange paint and paint in your splotches, and that would work too. I wanted my jack-o'-lantern to have a top hat, so I've got 2 pieces of black felt and an empty ribbon spool. Well, it's not empty yet, but it will be. And so I'm tracing out some circles to be the top part of the top hat, and also the brim. Oh, is that the brim of the hat? So I just freehanded the brim and cut those pieces out. Here's the spool that I'm using. It actually had ribbon on it, but it was the perfect size that I wanted. So I took that ribbon off of the spool, put it onto an empty spool that I had, and voila. Now I have this to use for a hat. Now that's using stuff that you have on hand. So see how cute this hat's gonna be. For the band of the hat, I just marked another piece of felt a little bit wider than what the spool of ribbon was. And then I hot glued the band to the smaller circle of felt. So we're making the top part of the top hat, and it's kind of like a slip cover for the empty ribbon spool. So the ribbon spool is the structure that's going to really hold it up, and this is the outside that covers it. So just keep hot gluing the band around the smaller circle until my piece of felt actually ran out. So the actual length of the felt that I bought wasn't long enough. So easy fix. You just get another little piece, because I had bought 2 pieces of felt, thankfully. Get another piece and glue it right in place. Things like this are easily remedied. You can hide it with florals or a ribbon or something later. So here I am hot gluing the ribbon spool inside of the little slip cover. I know that looks kind of funny because it's I've got the big black brim underneath, and it was probably hard to see, but you can tell what it is that I'm doing now. Hot gluing the pieces all together to construct my top hat. Don't worry about hot glue that's going to be seeping out around the edges, because when it gets dry, then you can go back with your scissors and trim off most of it. You're able to clean it up a good bit. Now I need to make a hole in the center because the hat needs to fit down over the stem. Now there's already a hole in the ribbon spool, so I used that to get my scissors in and make that hole. And then I needed to widen it, so I used the end of a screwdriver to make it as wide as I could, and it fit perfectly down over the stem of the jack-o'-lantern. When you're crafting and something just happens perfectly like that, it's just so yay. Okay, so now we want to decorate it up with some florals. These are just cheap Dollar Tree florals. Dollar Tree, y'all. They have the best florals anymore. And so I hot glued those along with some leaves that I already had on hand. Now then, I needed to light up the jack-o'-lantern. I'm using the tea lights from the Dollar Tree. I traced around the tea light, and I used my steak knife to cut out the hole in the bottom. I could have done this before I did the hat and everything, but it was all right. It didn't damage anything. And again, I didn't want this piece to fall down in the middle, so I used the little pick trick so that it would not fall down. I just didn't want anything rattling around. It would just bug me that I would have to try to get it out of there. So then I hot glued around the bottom of this and put the tea light in place, and then one more round of hot glue to make sure that it stays in place. The next jack-o'-lantern DIY is a journey, but it starts out with this pumpkin pail from Walmart. It's $1.97. It doesn't matter what color you buy. They have a white one even. Get whichever one you want to. It's going to get covered anyway. The first thing is cut off those handles. It's going to leave these little things, so I do cut them off later. To cut this in half, because this is going to be a door hanger, you're going to have either a really sharp utility knife. Please, please be careful if this is the route you take. My utility knife could have been stronger, sharper maybe, or use one of the wood burning tools like people do to kind of burn through the plastic. So I was able to do this. It's just the bottom that seems to be the hardest to get through. Once you get to the sides, it gets a lot easier. And fortunately, the eyes, nose, and mouth are really easy to cut through with a utility knife. An X-Acto knife would probably do it too. It's really thin around there, and you have little guides, grooves to go by. Just make sure you don't cut the teeth out. The teeth need to stay in place. In the whole cutting process, I didn't injure myself, but I see how it could happen. So I just want you to be extra, extra safe. Now here's where I'm cutting off those little pieces that was left by the handles. And now it's time to cover our little jack-o'-lantern friend. And I'm using this burlap from Walmart. But look, if you cover it like this, you're gonna lose the pumpkin ridges. So here's how I fix that. I take a paper towel and I fold it until it is the size of those ridges. And then I hot glue them on. I know this is going to look really ridiculous. This thing is going to look ridiculous, and then it's going to look hideous, and then you have to trust me, it's going to look gorgeous. So just follow these steps. Apply the paper towel, or you maybe could use tissue paper. Paper towel would probably be more economical though. And again, the reason that we're doing this is because when you cover it with the burlap, then it loses the pumpkin ridges. So I wanted some puffiness under this burlap so that it would look real pumpkin-y. So now I'm going to cover with the burlap. It takes 3 pieces to cover, and I start with the face portion because that is the most important part. You want to make sure that your face is the nicest, cleanest looking part of this project. It's, like I said, going to look bad for a while, but trust the process, it will begin to look really good. So start covering with your burlap ribbon. I think this ribbon is about $9 from Walmart. And here is where I did something where if I had to do it again, I would do it differently. Okay, I took my ribbon and I covered the back as well because I wanted it to look finished, which is nice, but I wind up covering it with something anyway. So save your time, save your burlap ribbon, and don't worry about the inside of this for now. Just cut 3 strips and cover the front side. I'm using hot glue throughout. Make sure you have the finger protectors or your fingers are going to get burned on this project. Just cover your whole front with the burlap ribbon, and I did wrap mine around to the back side, of course. Now then, the next step is to use an X-Acto knife to cut out the eyes, nose, and mouth. This is another reason why it would be better to not cover the back at all, because look, I had 2 layers of burlap to go through when I should have just had 1. So do yourself a favor and just never mind the back for now. The main goal here is just to get the pieces cut out. Don't be alarmed if you have cut too much, it gets frayed, because you can patch and adjust things later. Here I'm hot gluing so that the places where I did cut wouldn't fray anymore. And like I said, we're going to add more layers, and as this goes along, it's going to continue to look better and better. The second layer I want to look neater and cleaner than the first. So now I'm tracing and outlining where the eyes, nose, and mouth are, because I can still see through. And I'm going to use heavy spray starch to make this a little more stiff so that I can cut it out with an X-Acto knife. It didn't work perfectly, but it did help a lot. And this is a brand new X-Acto knife, so it's sharp blade. Now I was just barely able to get the full face onto the width of that burlap ribbon, but I made it. And now I'm going to glue that down, and I am going to tuck everything to the inside. So I'm gluing around the edges using my finger protectors and tucking around to the inside to try to finish off the edges to be as smooth as I possibly can. To make the pumpkin ridges, I put hot glue in the same places where I put the paper towels. So you can see where I'm pressing and holding and trying to make those ridges more apparent. And here I'm gluing on the side pieces. You may notice that I have cut the seam off of the edge. I liked the frayed edge better. I thought it blended in better than having that seam. So that's your choice. It doesn't really matter, but I did cut my seam off. Now we need some sort of a form. A wreath form would be perfect. One of those doodads. I didn't have one. What I had on hand was this beaded wreath form from the Dollar Tree. I kind of hate to use it for this, but it's what I had. So I'm hot gluing this around the edge, and so this works. If you actually have a floral wreath foam, you'll be gluing that to your jack-o'-lantern. I was trying to tap into my inner floral arranging self. And so I piled on the hot glue, just hot glue, hot glue, hot glue with these leaves and floral picks. And then I used my hair dryer on the cold setting to set that hot glue quickly so that I could move on to the next piece. So I started with the leaves, and I didn't know how far, if I was going to go all the way around this wreath or just halfway. I didn't know, but at some point I guess I figured I better just keep on going. So I glued the leaves all the way around, and these were leaves that I have had on hand. I picked off of an old autumn wreath. Now I'm adding some of the Dollar Tree florals, again with the hot glue, just gigantuan amount of hot glue I used in this project. Make sure you are stocked up on hot glue sticks if you're going to make this door hanger or this wreath. I wanted there to be a big bow. I have some velvet ribbon that I made double wired ribbon bow using this tutorial. I'm not good at explaining, so I'm just linking that for you. The only thing I know how to do is this bow that I'm doing right here that's going in the front. This is wired burlap ribbon from Walmart, and I just made a regular, shoelace, tie it like a shoelace bow. And I left the tails really long, and I hot glued it on top of my velvet ribbon bow that I made from the tutorial. And oh, the velvet ribbon also came from the Dollar Tree. It's pretty nice. You need to buy a couple of spools probably, because I had to dig into both spools. Then just hot glue your bow to the top, or where you could be in the middle of the head. I'm a side part kind of girl, so I put it over to the side. Now, as a finishing touch, you're going to add some black felt to the inside behind the face so that the eyes, nose, and mouth really pop. So cut out a circle and hot glue that to the inside. And that's why I say don't bother with finishing it out with the burlap like I did, because you can finish it with this black felt and it'd be beautiful. So I was standing back and trying to picture if she had everything the florist might put if they were making a wreath, and I thought, well, then she might need some more flowers. So I added some more flowers with some more hot glue until I thought she was just perfect. I used what I had left of the Dollar Tree velvet ribbon to make a hanger. So I cut a piece long enough that it would work for my front door. You cut however long a piece you need to make. And all I did was hot glue it together in a loop. And once the hot glue was set, then I made sure that the hot glued end was down on the bottom side, not the top side. So you see I will rotate that around here. And then I tied some jute string around the back with a double knot, and I've got a velvet hanger. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed the video and have an awesome rest of your Saturday. I'll see you next time. Bye.